Welcome back. It's 2026. This is Political Power Ranker. Thank you very much for tuning us in again. This is a show all about politics and polling. And the person of the hour who we rely on to give us those expert numbers, Spencer Kimball, Emerson College polling director. Spencer, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mr. Berg, and looking forward to 2026. Got a lot of races to pull together.
Oh my goodness, we are going to have a hoot of a time in 26. It's going to be a race to November, and each week you're going to see new polling here. So tune us in and see what fresh numbers Spencer's got for us. And I'm going to give you a hint. There's a big state down south that's up next week, and it may start with a T if you're looking to find out which state we're going to be covering next week. But before that all starts and we go to Texas, we got a big state and a big race we want to talk about up north, and that's Illinois. Let's talk about that, Spencer. You got some new numbers from that great state.
You got it. From Illinois, we took a look at what's happening up here in Chicago and the rest of the state, did a survey over the weekend, Sunday through Tuesday. We used in this survey likely voters. So in the past, we used registered voters. These are likely voters who plan to vote in the March primary. So it's a little bit more polarizing of electorate, but it gives us a better representative sample.
Great number, better numbers typically with a likely voter pool, and there is a big Senate race with Dick Durbin retiring. He's left a wide open race there, especially on the Democratic side. Illinois, a blue state. Let's look at what you found for the Democratic primary up in Illinois for Senate.
Yeah, we can land the plane to start the show. And what we see here is a front runner. Raja Krishnamurthy. He's leading. He's got 31%. He's got a lot of money in the bank. And his two opponents, Congresswoman Robin Kelly and the Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stanton, they're falling behind. And with only about 8-9 weeks before the primary, the question is, can they catch up? You can see there's a high number of undecided voters still. Can they switch over, or has Raja kind of created a base foundation that he's going to build off of? And that's what we're going to see over the next 2 months.
You know what? I know someone who may have that answer, and he's going to bring us a little bit of the on-the-ground reporting, and that's Taman Bradley, the WGN political reporter, anchor down there. Taman, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you, Chris. Good to see you, Spencer.
Nice to see you, Taman.
So you're seeing these numbers for the first time. What was your reaction?
I mean, it confirms our sense of where this race is headed. You look at the private polling that the campaigns sometimes share with us. You look at the partisan polling that the campaigns have released. All of them indicate that Krishnamurthy has a huge lead in this race. You know, it's fascinating. A lot of people have been eyeing that Dick Durbin seat. You know, he went to the United States Senate in the mid-1990s. So a lot of people have been wanting that seat for a while. And it's interesting that we only had, you know, Illinois has a deep bench of political heavyweights on the Democratic side. And so 3 major candidates stepped forward to run, but a lot of people were scared away because Raja Krishnamurthy and his congressional campaign account amassed this campaign war chest to the tune of about $20 million. And people knew that he was sitting on that. And so his fundraising is far ahead of Stratton and Kelly. And that's allowed him to bludgeon them with television advertising. He went up on TV in the late summer, and he's not come down. He spent $7 million on campaign commercials compared to less than $1 million for Stratton. Robin Kelly is not on the air at all, and that's made all the difference in the world, where he's been able to get his message out and define himself, while the others are still trying to get the campaign going and raise the funds to compete.
Now, what's interesting, let's just talk a little bit about the other 2 candidates. So you have Juliana Stratton. She's the lieutenant governor. She's been with Pritzker for 8 years now, 7 years, since the 2019 timeframe. He endorsed her. She's got the Tammy Duckworth endorsement, Senator Tammy Duckworth. But she hasn't broken out. And Pritzker hasn't really spent a lot of money supporting her, about 100 grand in her PACs, and less than that personally, just capped it out at 7 grand. But why hasn't she done better? Is it just purely money, even with that support?
Well, you stressed the most important part, Chris, and that is Governor Pritzker. Since he ran for governor the first time in late 2017, elected in 2018, he has spent on Illinois politics more than $300 million of his personal fortune. He is a billionaire, and he endorsed Stratton early, but he has not contributed to her campaign the kind of money that's necessary to compete against Krishnamurthy. It raises lots of questions. I mean, Stratton has been the number 2 person in the state, has been Pritzker's loyal sidekick, but she's running attached to his record, and she's struggled, particularly if she's not able to get her message out on TV. She's struggled to separate herself from Pritzker and to identify who she is. She's also never had to raise money herself. She was just a state representative for less than a year when Pritzker tapped her to be his running mate. So not only did she not have a massive fundraising apparatus on her own, she also doesn't have constituencies and supporters that she regularly interacts with without the governor. She's just been so attached to him. And so she is depending on him to go all in for her, which he's been reluctant to do.
Mm-hmm. And what about Congresswoman Kelly? What's her story? Can she make out some of this ground?
She's very well liked. Her district, which is encompasses part of the south suburbs of Chicago, is very diverse. So she has a little bit of the city. She's got suburbs, exurbs, well connected in politics. Used to work with Roger Krishnamurthy actually in the state treasurer's office years ago. They had a little bit of a falling out there. Kelly says things are fine now. She's made a name for herself, taking the fight on gun control issues, which has drawn attention from Democratic constituencies. And she was very close to Barack Obama, as well as Dick Durbin, frankly, who stayed out, has not made an endorsement in the contest. So very well liked. She might just surprise people and do better than folks anticipate in this race, particularly if Stratton remains stuck in neutral.
Mm-hmm. Interesting poll here that I'm looking at. But we do need to change gears because we've spent about 8 minutes on this big race. Let's look at the Republicans, and it's really we'll be quick about this. 84% undecided. Obviously, name recognition is pretty low for all of these guys. Quick thought on them before we go to Spencer.
Probably going to be Don Tracy, the only person with any sort of name ID in the contest, well connected. The GOP grassroots know him and like him. But in Illinois politics, we call it a suicide mission, a race like this where where the headwinds would seem to be favoring Democrats in what's a solidly blue state.
Right. Spence, suicide mission for Mr. Tracy?
Essentially, because you can see voters aren't really tuned into the race, particularly on the Republican side. And when they are, Tracy, being the biggest name in that group, is probably going to consolidate support. But then where do you go in the general election? Pritzker is going to be running for a 3rd term, and it seems to be a Democratic wave year. So it's going to be a tough haul for Tracy to be able to pull off the upset. Plus, he's going to need the money. Raja still is going to have tens of millions of dollars sitting in his account after the primary. Where does he get the money to be able to compete with that?
Exactly. So we have one mother that was the Senate race, but we have a second race, the governor's race in Illinois. And obviously, Governor Pritzker is the incumbent running again, maybe running for president as well. But we have a Republican primary poll here that you should talk about a little bit, Spencer, about who is leading that race from your numbers.
So when you see this poll, this is the Republican side again, but you can see 40% of voters now have an opinion that didn't have an opinion last time. So that number is down to 46%. And Darren Bailey is the name. He's got the name recognition from his last run. And so he is the clear front runner in this race. He's obviously been in the news with the horrific accident that occurred. So He's the favorite to win the nomination, but Pritzker would be the favorite, particularly with Pritzker's strong name favorabilities right now. He's over 50%, which is where the incumbent wants to be. So it's going to be a tough race as well for Bailey to try to pull up the upset here in Illinois.
Taman, Bailey lost by 12 points in 22. We did a couple debates together with him in that cycle. Tell me, why does Darren Bailey get back in, and why do Republicans want him to be their front runner?
Well, let me just first say that I agree with Spencer that the general election certainly favors Pritzker, but I do think if Juliana Stratton loses in the primary, Pritzker will have some explaining to do and some repair work to do among Black constituencies who are so critical in the state of Illinois. You know, why didn't you do more for your lieutenant governor candidate? Why didn't you help send a Black woman to the United States Senate? Or why didn't you do everything that you could to do that? Darren Bailey just connects, Chris. You know, he represents where the Republican grassroots are, where MAGA is. Christian evangelical. He's a farmer. He's folksy. He talks in plain and simple language. It does not play up in Cook County and the collar counties surrounding Chicago, which is where all the voters are. You know, his shtick would work in a red state. It would work somewhere in the South. It's just a really tough sell in Illinois, but he'll cruise to the nomination likely. And it'll be the second time that he defeated the establishment. The Republican establishment in the state has put their money behind and resources behind other candidates, but Bailey's got the people. Mm-hmm. There's an authenticity there that just shines through.
And yeah, it did during our two debates with him. And, you know, I think he gave the governor a little bit of run for his money if it wasn't such a Chicago Democratic base of voters that Pritzker's going to rely on. But that's just the way Illinois
Chicago
is.
A hellhole didn't help either. You know?
Yeah, that too. I forgot that part. Yeah, people take offense to that. Just a little bit. But we've got a Pritzker candidate endorsement polling number that we want to talk about, because this is interesting, Spence.
Yeah, so we talked about Pritzker's endorsement, and it might have implications on the 2028 presidential run for him if the lieutenant governor doesn't run well, particularly amongst Democratic primary voters. But when we take a look here, you can see that for the endorsement of Pritzker, it's going to slightly help the Democratic candidate, and that's what we're seeing, a slight help. Maybe she can come in second, but she might drop to third here, and that would really show a lack of weight to Pritzker's support, not just in this race, but potentially in other races.
You know what might give him an out there, though, Spencer, is if in fact he doesn't write a $100 million check. He could sort of say, and reporters will write stories that, well, he didn't really fully extend his coattails to his lieutenant governor. And so this didn't end up being a referendum on him because people were paying attention to the race separate from what he was saying. So he may very well have an out there.
He might on the big picture, but amongst the grassroots, they're going to say he did not fund this candidate that he supported. And I'm telling you, in South Carolina, that could trickle all the way down there, and they could hear those rumors that he's not supporting the people that he said he was going to support properly, and that could hurt him in 28 as well.
More to come on that. That is going to be an interesting development as we continue to look ahead from 2026 and 28. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Political Power Ranker, and the name Donald Trump is what we're going to be talking about right out of the gate when we come back. Welcome back to the 2026 edition, first edition of Political Power Ranker. We're talking Illinois politics with Taman Bradley, the political reporter from WGN in Chicago, and of course, Spencer Kimball, who generates these numbers for us. Mostly accurate, right, Spencer? I'm just kidding.
95%.
Spencer does a great job polling every week for us. Let's jump back into it. The next slide we've got, does Donald Trump's endorsement of a candidate make you more or less likely to vote for him? Spencer,
So
what do we have?
Yeah, we looked at Pritzker, and Pritzker doesn't have as much pull within the Democratic Party as Trump does within the Republican Party. The problem is, though, Trump has more negatives overall than Pritzker does. So the Trump endorsement would get whatever Republican would get the nomination, but it would probably cost him the general election because the voters would be anti-Trump in that group. So it's going to be a tough rub to see if the Republican candidates use Trump at all here in the state, or if they kind of distance themselves, especially Bailey, and try to run as a more moderate lane. But we'll see how that plays out over the course of the campaign.
Taman, the ICE raids in Chicago can't help that number either with Democrats.
No, and I know Spencer has polling on the president's standing in Illinois, but nationally, with several polls showing the president closer to the mid 30s than 40 to 45%. He will be a drag for Republicans, certainly in blue states and in battlegrounds this fall. And Darren Bailey last time had President Trump's endorsement. He'll probably get it this time. Whether Bailey wants it or not, frankly, because President Trump likes to pick fights with Governor Pritzker and Governor Pritzker as well. It's good politics for both of them, especially as Governor Pritzker thinks about 2028. And so I do expect that Donald Trump will be a factor in Illinois in the fall, and that just does not in any way help Darren Bailey.
Does the Trump immigration planning stance and what they're doing in Chicago, I'm done in Chicago, does that tie back to Bailey, do you think?
I think Governor Pritzker will do that. Absolutely. I mean, I think most of his advertising will link Bailey with Trump and, say that he's a MAGA Republican. He's too extreme. That's what Governor Pritzker did last time, and I would expect more of the same. He'll tie him to Trump's record, and that's going to be a very difficult sell in Illinois, where people might actually listen to someone who's offering something different after 2 terms of Governor Pritzker, but he'll look and sound a little bit too much like Donald Trump for the middle, for voters in the middle in the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Spence, we got another slide here, and this is interesting. You kind of compared the endorsement importance with Pritzker versus Trump, and tell us what you saw.
Well, you see that 52 next to Trump's name in red, and that's a big concern if you're the Republicans, because you got to get to a 50% threshold generally in a one-on-one match here, and that's going to hold you back. Pritzker, on the other hand, is not going to hold back the Democrat. So they may not be happy with all of the governor's policies, but it doesn't seem to have that type of animosity towards him that who he would choose might impact their nomination. So even without the endorsement for Raja, he's still going to have a clear run, I believe, in the general election. And Pritzker will probably come on board after the primary as well.
Come on, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, Pritzker's approval rating being greater than 50, there's some savvy politics there because, the governor, he won't admit to doing this. He'll say his relationship with the Chicago mayor is just fine. But, the governor picks and chooses moments where he can distance himself from the highly unpopular Chicago mayor. And, he presents himself as someone who's being responsible in this time of great austerity. And, he's sort of made statements that are not in line with what the Chicago Teachers Union, which is a political political organization here in the city, and some of the things that they advocate for. And so the governor, in doing that, and maybe a little old-fashioned triangulation, has helped to keep his numbers well above water in the state.
Interesting. Well, we're done with politics at the moment because now we're going to get to stuff that's really important to people. It's playoff time in the NFL, but there's a big issue in Chicago about where the Bears going to play down the road. And there's a fight about that and who's going to pay for it. And ownership across the NFL is wanting, obviously, the taxpayers to pick up a big portion of any new stadium. And that's being discussed right now in Chicago. And Spence, you got some numbers.
Well, Chris, here's the intersection of sports and politics for us. We love the Bears here in Chicago. 60% think it's very important that we have the Bears here in Illinois. But when we ask them who's going to pay for the new stadium, it's the opposite. The alligator arms come out and they're like, I'm not sure I want to pay for that, but we really do want the Bears here. So this is a tough conundrum, I think, for the politicians to have to figure out. If they lose the Bears, that would be a tremendous impact, I think, on younger voters. So it would be interesting to see who's going to come up with a solution to solve this riddle.
Taman, what's going to happen?
So what will happen when the Bears beat the Packers this weekend is that 100% of likely voters will favor public funding. So what's going to happen is, we'll likely get to a point where Bears ownership will realize that they're going to have to foot the bill for their stadium. I mean, the taxpayers just have gotten wise to these stadium deals. They don't work out well for taxpayers. And Governor Pritzker has been very clear that not only does he not support taxpayer funding for the stadium, he wants the Bears to pay off their debt on a Soldier Field renovation that was done, 2 decades ago. There's just not the will for it, and I do think it's a little bit of bluster from the Bears, who just as folks were getting excited about their playoff push, announced they're exploring Northwest Indiana. Purely speculation and kind of a prediction here. The lakefront remains on the table as an option, and there's Friends of the Park. There's groups that want to protect where they build, but if the politicians took care of that, if the state paid for some infrastructure, that's not the stadium, but infrastructure, they could land on the lakefront with a new stadium. They just got to foot the bill, but they have so far not wanted to do that, because elsewhere people don't have to do that. The fancy sports teams just say, hey, here's the new rendering, and the taxpayers pay for it. Illinoisans are too smart for that, guys.
Well, what's really interesting, and the Bears have this to their advantage at the moment, is what the Chiefs just did. They went right across the border, got a deal from Kansas, and I happen to know some people from Kansas City, and they aren't happy about the Chiefs moving over to the state of Kansas. Do you think the Bears have the ability to leverage that in Chicago to their advantage?
Maybe, right? They do have a massive plot of land in Arlington Heights, which is north of the city. I think they've said a lot of different things. There've been a lot of fits and starts to this. Chicago remains on the table. It's never been ruled out, so I just wouldn't bet against it.
And I never thought the Dodgers would leave Brooklyn.
Yeah. My Packers are going to beat the Bears this weekend, just so we know that. It's going to be a great game this weekend, regardless. Yes. We're taping on a Wednesday, so we don't know the outcome yet, but it was a great game last time, and I'm sure we'll see another one again. All right, one last set of numbers here for this segment, and this is an interesting one, especially for guys like us and your political producer, Jordan. We love debates, and we love that people love them. And Spencer, tell us what you found.
So we asked people how important these debates are for candidates to participate, and we're seeing an increase this season in people's interest in these debates. Here you can see it's over 90% say it's important or very important. That's a big number for these candidates to have to come out and explain their policies to voters. It also gives an advantage to challengers. Usually incumbents can hide from the debates, and it looks like voters now want them. That might pull them out into the arena.
And we've seen that a lot over the course of the past 5 or 6 years, where the front runners are like, sorry, I'm not going to do a debate because there's someone on, my opponent is not that strong, so I'm just not going to do it. But Taman, you guys have found a willingness here, at least in the primary.
Yes, and I can't wait to show those numbers to the Darren Bailey campaign, because he is certainly a candidate who could run and hide, but debates are good for our democracy, and they can also upset a race. I mean, just ask Joe Biden.
Just ask Joe Biden. There you go. Change the complexion of the entire race there, for sure. All right, that's segment 2. We're down to one last segment. It's who's up and who's down, according to Spencer Kimball. You're going to want to watch that because it's interesting. We're going to be right back after we take a 1-minute break. All right, we are back with one last segment, our favorite segment, Who's Up and Who's Down, our first one of 2026. And Spence, you've got someone who is not a surprise. Who's up?
Yeah, so we're going to start in Illinois, and we've got up is Raja. He's got 30% of the vote of those over 30 in the 50s. He's got almost 40% of the vote of those in their 60s, and he's got 60% of the vote over those in the 70s. So his vote increases with age, and we've got him up this week in Illinois.
Taman, any surprise there for you?
No, he's trending. He looks like the 1998 Yankees.
He's on the move. All right, Spence, who's down this week?
Well, a couple of his opponents. So we take a look at Juliana Stratton. She is losing the African-American vote. She's getting 12%. Kelly's getting 21% of that vote. She's got to make some serious inroads with that African-American vote because Raja is getting 22%. So he's been able to splinter that vote, which should be part of her core constituency.
And then the other down?
We have Kelly. Robin Kelly's down because she's only getting 7% of the female vote. Stratton's getting 13% of that vote, but Raja's getting 26%. So what you're seeing between Kelly and Stratton is a splitting of some of their likely supporters, and it's really causing a difficulty to really compete with Raja at this time.
Taman, those are some interesting demographics. What do you think?
Emily's list endorsed Stratton, which they typically will stay out of a contest if you have two women running. So that's a problem for both of them, frankly. What were the early? So it was Emily. What was the other demo? Oh, black voters. Yes. So Stratton. Black voters certainly don't want you to come around when it's election time. They want you to have built a relationship, to have proven what you've done. And that's turning out to be a problem for Stratton. Now, she can try to connect. If she does turn this around, it'll be powered through black voters in the primary, but it's got to start right now.
And time is ticking. We don't have much time left. We only have, it's March 3rd for you, March 17th, sorry, for you guys.
We're less than a month away from early voting in Illinois.
So she's got to get going if she wants to get those black voters back on board. All right, we are running out of time. Taman, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Great 2026 start. Thank you. Illinois is going to be a big state. And one last note, if you are looking for information on Political Power Ranker and all our numbers, you can go to our social media pages, and there they are right there. Anytime you want new stuff, there it's going to be on our Political Power Ranker social media sites. So thanks everyone very much for joining us. Taman, thanks again, Spence, and we will see you on YouTube and other places.